Hello, I'm Dr Kasser, and welcome to this podcast where the AI team does a deep dive into some application of systems thinking.
All right, let's jump right in.
Sounds good to me.
Today's deep dive is all about thinking.
And problem solving.
We're going to be looking at Dr. Joseph Kasser's course called Creating Outstanding Problem Solvers.
Oh, yeah, I know that one.
We thought this would be really helpful for anyone who wants to improve their analytical skills or just become a better thinker.
More effective thinker, for sure.
Exactly.
It's interesting, right?
Yeah.
We try to solve these problems, but we don't even know how our own thinking works.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like trying to fix a car engine without even knowing what the parts are.
I like that analogy, yeah.
It helps to visualize it.
So true.
So Dr. Kasser, he starts by walking us through the different types of knowledge.
Okay, so like knowing that something is true.
Yeah.
Like knowing that the sky is blue.
Yeah.
But then there's also knowing how to do something.
Right, like knowing how to ride a bike.
Exactly, yeah. And then
there's this really interesting one.
Yeah.
This conditional knowledge.
Ooh, what is that?
Yeah, it's basically knowing when and why to use your knowledge.
Okay, so context.
It's all about context.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, you can have all these tools,
Right.
but if you don't know which tool to use
Yeah,
or when to use it,
No, exactly.
then the tools are useless.
What's the point?
Yeah, exactly.
So conditional knowledge is about choosing the right tool for the job
Yes.
at the right time.
Right.
Perfect.
So from there, Dr. Kasser, he kind of takes us on this tour of the human information system.
Okay, so like our brains.
Yeah, like the operating system of our brains.
I like that.
You've got your sensory inputs, your working memory.
Okay, so our senses are bringing in all the raw data,
Yeah.
and then our working memory is kind of like our...
It's like that mental notepad.
Yeah.
Where you're just juggling all this information.
Right. And then we also have long-term memory.
Right, where you store all the things you've learned and experiences. Yeah.
Oh.
But the real star of the show here
Yeah.
is this thing called the executive function.
Ooh.
It's like the CEO of your brain.
Your CEO, okay.
Yeah, it's directing your attention, helping you make decisions.
So it's helping us make sense of all that information that's coming in.
Yeah.
That's pretty crucial for problem solving, I would say.
Oh, it's essential.
Yeah.
If your CEO is not doing their job,
Yeah.
then nothing's going to get done.
Exactly.
Now, when we talk about seeing the bigger picture,
Right.
that's where this idea of systems thinking comes in.
Okay, yeah. Systems thinking. I always think of that story about
The blind man and the elephant.
Yes, exactly.
Classic example.
They each feel a different part of the elephant.
Yeah.
And they come up with a completely different idea
Totally different description.
of what an elephant is.
Yeah.
But none of them are really right.
Right, because they're only seeing a small part
Yeah.
of the whole picture.
Exactly. And systems thinking is all about seeing the whole elephant.
Yes.
I love it.
And Dr. Kasser, he talks about the importance of both a systemic
Okay.
and a systematic approach.
So systemic is like seeing the whole elephant.
The whole system.
Okay, and what's systematic then?
That's about having a clear process
Okay.
for how you're going to analyze that system.
Got it. So it's like
having a map and a compass.
yeah, I like that.
Your map shows you the terrain,
Right.
and your compass guides you in the right direction.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense.
So we're starting to see the whole picture now.
Yeah.
But what happens when the elephant's just massive?
Right. Like a really complex system.
Yeah, how do you even begin to wrap your mind around that?
Yeah, that's a good question.
So Dr. Kasser, he gives us these tools
Okay.
to help us visualize these complex relationships.
Tools, like what kind of tools?
Well, you've got lists.
Oh, yeah. To organize information.
Right.
You've got concept maps.
Visualize the connections.
Exactly. To see how things connect.
Okay.
And then things get really interesting.
Ooh, okay. I'm intrigued.
For causal loops.
Causal loops? Is this where we get into time travel or something?
Not quite.
Okay.
But they do help us see how actions can trigger a whole chain of consequences.
Like a domino effect.
Exactly, like a domino effect.
Oh.
One domino falls and it triggers this whole cascade.
Right.
So causal loops help us map out those domino effects.
Okay, so we can anticipate those unintended consequences.
Exactly, because sometimes you fix one problem and then 3 more pop up.
Right, and that can be so frustrating.
Oh, for sure.
So causal loops help us avoid that.
Yes.
I like it.
Now, if causal loops are like seeing that domino effect, N2 charts take it a step further.
Okay, so what are N2 charts?
They show us how different elements in a system interact with each other.
Not just cause and effect, but also things like cooperation, and conflict.
So we're seeing the whole domino rally,
The whole picture.
not just one chain.
Right, exactly.
Okay, that's cool. So we're really getting a detailed picture here.
Yeah, it's going beyond just
Yeah.
listing the pros and cons.
Exactly, yeah.
So these tools, they help us understand that complex web of relationships in a system.
Which is crucial for problem solving.
Right, absolutely.
Okay, so if these are kind of like,
It's like building the scaffolding.
okay.
Now we need to put on these special glasses.
Ooh, special glasses.
Yeah, to examine that structure from every angle.
What kind of glasses are we talking about here?
These are called holistic thinking perspectives.
Holistic thinking perspectives.
Yeah, and there are 9 of them.
9 different perspectives. That sounds intense.
It is, but it's really powerful.
Okay, so walk me through this.
Well, imagine you're building a house.
Okay.
You wouldn't just focus on the floor plan.
Right, you'd also think about
You'd think about the plumbing,
the electrical.
the wiring, the landscaping,
Right.
all those different parts.
Yeah.
Each of those represents a different perspective on the same house.
Okay, that makes sense. So these holistic thinking perspectives.
Yeah.
Like different lenses
Exactly.
that we can use to examine a situation.
Yes.
I like.
And Dr. Kasser, he says most people,
Yeah.
they get stuck in just a few of these perspectives.
Oh,
But by consciously
Yeah.
using all 9 of them,
right.
you get a much richer
A more holistic view.
understanding of the situation.
Makes sense.
Now, we're going to dive deep into each of those
Yeah.
9 perspectives
Excited.
in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
But first,
Yeah.
let's talk about what it actually means to solve a problem.
Okay, let's get down to business.
Let's do it.
I'm ready to solve some problems.
Awesome. All right, welcome back to our deep dive into problem solving.
I'm ready to put on my detective hat.
Perfect, because like a good detective,
Yeah.
we need to be precise with our definitions.
Okay, so how do we define a problem?
Well, Dr. Kasser defines a problem as an undesirable situation that needs a solution.
Okay, that seems pretty straightforward.
It sounds simple,
Yeah,
but in reality,
Right.
it can be a lot trickier.
yeah, I can imagine.
Sometimes we might be trying to solve the wrong problem altogether.
Oh, that's a good point.
Or we might just grab the first solution that seems okay.
Right, like good enough.
Yeah, without really exploring all the options.
So we're settling.
Dr. Kasser calls this satisficing.
Satisficing.
Yeah, it's like settling for a C when you could have gotten an A.
Ah, okay. So we're not really optimizing.
Exactly.
So how do we avoid this trap?
Well, that's where adaptivizing comes in.
Adaptivizing, that's a mouthful.
It is, but it's a really cool concept.
Okay, break it down for me.
Think of it like a GPS for your brain.
The GPS for my brain,
Okay, you set your destination,
which is
your desired outcome,
Got it.
and then you constantly reevaluate your route as you go.
So we're being flexible,
Yeah.
adapting to new information.
Exactly. It's not about being rigid.
Okay, like
It's about being able to adjust as you learn more.
it's like that saying, no plan survives first contact with the enemy.
Exactly.
So we need to be prepared for those unexpected detours.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned these decision traps.
Oh, yeah, these are like mental shortcuts
Right.
that can lead us astray.
Even when we think we're being logical.
Yeah, our brains like to trick us sometimes.
So give me an example. What kind of traps are we talking about?
Well, there's frame blindness for one.
Frame blindness.
Yeah, it's like looking at a puzzle through a tiny keyhole.
So you're only seeing a small part of the picture.
Right, and you might end up defining the wrong problem.
Oh, I see. So you might be trying to force a square peg into a round hole
Exactly.
because you haven't stepped back
Yeah.
to see the whole context.
Right, you're missing the bigger picture.
Okay, that makes sense. What other traps are there?
Well, there's also overconfidence,
Overconfidence.
which can be just as dangerous.
How so?
It's like setting off on a road trip without checking the map or packing any supplies.
Oh, so you think you know the way,
Yeah, but you're totally unprepared.
and you end up getting lost.
Lost, hungry, thirsty.
Right, the whole 9 yards.
Not a good situation.
So how do we avoid these traps?
Well, Dr. Kasser breaks down the problem-solving process into 2 main stages.
Okay, what are they?
Defining the problem,
All right, step 1.
and then solving the problem.
Okay, step 2 seems pretty obvious.
It does, but he emphasizes the importance of really nailing that first stage.
So don't jump into solutions too quickly.
Right, spend time really understanding the problem.
Ask the right questions
Exactly.
before searching for answers.
That's where this method called the backward-forward design specification comes in.
Whoa, that's a mouthful.
I know, it's a bit of a tongue twister.
But I'm guessing it's an important one.
It is. It's a really powerful approach.
Okay, so what is it?
Think of it as reverse engineering your success.
Reverse engineering. Okay, I'm intrigued. Walk me through this.
Imagine you're using Google Maps,
Okay.
but instead of starting at your current location,
Yeah.
you start at your destination.
So you start with the end goal.
Exactly, your project goal.
Got it.
And then you work backward.
To map out the steps.
Yes, to figure out how to get there.
So you're starting with the what
The desired outcome.
and then figuring out the how.
Precisely.
Okay, I like that. It's
Yeah.
like having a clear roadmap before you even start the journey.
Exactly.
Now let's talk about complexity,
Okay, that's a big one.
because some problems are just plain messy.
They are. Dr. Kasser calls them wicked problems.
Wicked problems. I like that. It feels like you're wrestling an octopus.
So many tentacles.
Exactly.
So how do we deal with that?
Yeah. How do we even begin to untangle those tentacles?
Well, first we need to acknowledge that complexity is often subjective.
Subjective.
Yeah, what
Right.
one person might consider a large problem, another person might see as totally manageable.
So it's all relative.
It is. It depends on your perspective.
Okay, that makes sense.
But
But how do we define large then?
that's a good question, and it's important to establish clear criteria
Criteria for what?
for defining large.
Okay, so we need a metric.
Exactly. Are we talking about the number of variables involved?
The potential impact.
What time constraints?
Right, all those factors.
Once we have a clear metric,
Yeah.
we can start breaking down the
Into smaller chunks.
Exactly, a divide and conquer strategy.
I like it. But what if the problem feels so overwhelming
Yeah.
that you don't even know where to start dividing?
That's where the 9-system model comes in.
The 9-system model. Okay, remind me what that is.
Remember that blueprint analogy?
Oh, yeah, like a blueprint for understanding the problem.
Exactly. This model helps us break down complex problems
Like-
by dividing them into 9 interconnected subsystems.
9 subsystems. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's like having a blueprint for
Yes.
how all the pieces fit together.
Each of those 9 systems represents a different aspect of the problem.
So we're not just identifying the problem,
Right.
but also mapping out the solution.
And the steps involved in getting there.
Okay, that's pretty comprehensive.
It is. It's about taking a holistic approach.
I like it. Now, I know Dr. Kasser also talks about how systems thinking can be applied to project management.
Oh, yeah. He dedicates a whole module to that.
That's something I'm really interested in. What are some of the key takeaways there?
Well, one of the most valuable insights is the systems approach to planning.
The systems approach to planning. Okay. What is that?
It involves thinking about a project as a living system.
A living system?
Yeah, with all these interconnected parts.
So it's not just a linear sequence of tasks.
Right, it's more like weaving a tapestry.
I love that analogy.
It's about understanding how all the different parts of the project relate to each other.
And anticipating potential roadblocks.
Exactly, you have to be able to see the bigger picture.
Okay, that makes sense. So
That's
it's
it.
not just about checking off tasks on a list.
Right, it's about understanding the complex interplay of factors that contribute to a successful project.
And Dr. Kasser really emphasizes the importance of working back from the solution when planning a project.
Oh, that reminds me of that reverse engineering approach we talked about earlier.
Exactly. You start with your desired outcome
The finished project.
and then map out the steps to get there.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But even with the best planning,
Yeah.
there are bound to be unexpected challenges.
Of course, that's where risk management comes in.
Right, and I'm guessing a systems thinking approach can really help us there too.
Absolutely. And one of the key insights from the course is the importance of shifting from a static view of risk
Okay.
to a more dynamic one.
A static versus dynamic view of risk. What do you mean by that?
Well, traditional risk management
Yeah.
often focuses on creating these risk rectangles.
Risk rectangles.
Yeah, like matrices that plot the likelihood of a risk occurring against its potential impact. Oh yeah, I've seen those before. They seem pretty straightforward. What's wrong with them?
Well, they give you a snapshot of potential problems.
Yeah.
But they don't capture how those risks can evolve
Oh, okay.
and interact within a complex system.
So it's like trying to understand a symphony by looking at a single note on a sheet of music.
Exactly. You're missing the harmony, the rhythm, the dynamics of the whole piece.
Right, so you need a more holistic view of risk.
That's where the concept of a risk profile comes in.
Oh, risk profiles.
Instead of a static snapshot,
Yeah.
it provides a dynamic assessment
Okay.
that considers how risks can change over time.
So it's like watching a movie instead of looking at a still photograph.
Precisely. You're seeing the whole story unfold.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not just about identifying potential problems,
Right.
but also about understanding how those problems might shift and change as the project progresses.
Exactly. And a systems thinking approach helps us do that
Wow.
by viewing risks through a systems lens.
Okay, so we can identify potential risks more effectively,
Yes.
assess their potential impact more accurately,
And develop more robust mitigation strategies.
And I'm guessing we could also start to identify potential opportunities.
Oh, absolutely.
Wait, opportunities? I thought risk management was all about preventing negative outcomes.
It is, but it's also about recognizing that every risk has the potential to turn into an opportunity.
Okay, I like that. So it's about turning a potential problem into a potential advantage.
Exactly. It's like that saying, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade.
I love that. So it's about being resourceful and adaptable.
Precisely.
But of course, even the best systems and strategies are only as effective as the people implementing them.
That's so true. The human factor is crucial.
Right, you can't just plug people into a system and expect everything to run smoothly.
Exactly. And Dr. Kasser acknowledges that poor people,
Poor people.
not in the financial sense, but in terms of skills, knowledge, and attitude.
Right, like people who aren't a good fit for the team.
Exactly. Those individuals can pose a significant risk to any project.
Okay, I've definitely worked with people like that. How do you mitigate that risk?
Well, it's not always about avoiding those people altogether.
Okay,
Sometimes they have valuable skills or knowledge.
right, they might have something to offer.
The key is to create an environment where they can thrive,
So it's about setting clear expectations
providing support and training.
and creating a culture where people feel comfortable asking for help.
Exactly. It's about fostering open communication and trust.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, I know we've talked a lot about systems and processes,
Yeah.
but I want to touch on one more element that seems crucial to all of this. Communication.
Yes, communication is key.
It might seem basic,
It does.
but I'm guessing it's more important than we often realize.
You'd be surprised how many projects go off the rails because of communication breakdowns.
Right, assumptions are made.
Information is misconstrued.
And before you know it, everyone's on a different page.
It's like that game of telephone.
Yeah, where the message gets completely distorted.
Dr. Kasser really emphasizes the importance of clear
Concise.
and unambiguous communication.
Especially in technical fields where there's a lot of jargon.
Exactly. One wrong word can lead to a whole cascade of problems.
So it's not just about what you say,
Right.
but also how you say it.
And it's about creating a culture where people feel safe, asking questions,
Challenging
and
assumptions.
sharing their perspectives.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mm.
Without that, even the best problem-solving tools are useless.
They are. Communication is the foundation.
This has been such an eye-opener.
I'm glad you're finding it valuable.
It's not just about having the right tools and techniques.
Right.
It's about fostering a collaborative environment
Yes.
where those tools can be used effectively.
And that requires strong leadership
A shared vision.
and a commitment to continuous learning.
Okay, so there's a lot more to it than just following a checklist.
There is. It's about building a culture of problem solving.
I love that. A culture of problem solving.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to touch on one more concept from the course that really resonated with me. Technological uncertainty.
Yes, that's a big one in fields like engineering and project management.
Right, where technology is constantly changing.
Dr. Kasser introduces a framework for assessing this uncertainty,
Called
the Technology Availability Window of Opportunity.
the TWO.
It's a bit of a mouthful.
It is, but I like the acronym.
It's catchy.
So the TWO is like a sliding scale
Yeah.
from technologies that are readily available
And well understood.
to those that are still in the experimental phase.
Exactly. And understanding where a project falls on this scale is crucial
For sure.
for managing expectations
Allocating resources.
and assessing the feasibility of the project.
Okay, so if a project relies on existing technologies,
Yeah.
the TW rating would be higher.
Indicating lower risk.
Right, because it's more predictable.
Exactly. But if a project involves cutting-edge technologies,
That haven't been fully developed or tested,
the TABU rating would be lower.
meaning higher risk.
Right, because there's more uncertainty.
Okay, that makes sense. So the taboo framework helps us navigate those unknowns.
Exactly. It gives us a tool for making more informed decisions.
This has been an amazing deep dive.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on what it means to be a problem solver.
And remember, it's a skill that takes practice.
Right, the more we use these tools and techniques.
The better we become at tackling those wicked problems.
So it's about embracing a mindset of continuous learning
Always be curious. Always be questioning.
and never stop seeking out new perspectives.
Well said.
This has been an incredible conversation.
It has. I've really enjoyed exploring these ideas with you.
And to our listener,
Yes.
we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity.
And given you some valuable tools to tackle the challenges that come your way.
Remember, Every problem is an opportunity for growth.
And learning.
Until next time, keep those problem-solving muscles flexed.
And those minds open.
Wow, we've covered so much ground already.
It's been a lot.
From thinking processes to systems thinking.
Yeah.
We even touched on some pretty complex ideas.
Like adaptivizing.
Right, and that 9-system model.
A lot to unpack there.
Now I'm really curious to see how all of this comes together in the real world.
Right. Let's get practical.
Do you have any good examples?
Well, Dr. Kasser actually uses a really interesting example in the course.
Okay, what is it?
He uses the classroom.
The classroom.
Yeah, to demonstrate how these holistic thinking perspectives can be applied.
Oh, okay, so like using those 9 different lenses.
Exactly, to examine the classroom as a system.
I like that. Everyone can relate to that.
Right, whether you're a student, a teacher, or just someone who's spent time in a classroom.
Yeah, for sure. So how does he use those 9 perspectives?
Well, let's take a quick tour through each one.
Okay, I'm ready.
First up, we have the big picture perspective.
Big picture, okay.
This encourages us to zoom out and see the classroom within the broader context.
So like the educational system as a whole.
Exactly, even societal expectations.
Okay, so we're thinking about things like curriculum standards,
Funding models.
even cultural attitudes towards education.
It's all connected.
Wow, okay. So we've zoomed out. Now what?
Now we zoom back into the
Yeah.
operational perspective.
Operational, what's that about?
This one focuses on the day-to-day activities happening in the classroom.
Okay, so like lectures and discussions,
Group projects, homework assignments.
the nuts and bolts of classroom life.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've seen the big picture and the daily operations. What's next?
Next, we go even deeper with the functional perspective.
Functional, okay.
This one's all about the processes involved in teaching and learning.
So how information is presented and absorbed.
And assessed.
Okay, so we're looking at different learning styles.
Teaching methods, assessment strategies.
Got it. So it's about the how of teaching and learning.
Precisely.
Okay, what's next?
Then we move on to the structural perspective.
Structural, okay.
This one focuses on the physical environment of the classroom.
So the layout of the room.
The furniture, the technology, even the lighting.
Oh, interesting. So even something as simple as rearranging the desks could make a difference.
Absolutely. The physical environment can have a big impact on the learning experience.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these different perspectives can really change our understanding of the classroom.
Right, and we're only halfway through.
Wow, okay. What's next?
Now we move into what Dr. Kasser calls the progressive perspectives.
Aggressive perspectives, okay.
Starting with the generic perspective.
Generic, what does that mean in this context?
It encourages us to compare the classroom to other types of learning environments.
Okay, so we might compare a traditional classroom to an online learning platform.
Exactly, or even a historical model of education.
Like the one-room schoolhouse.
Right. Seeing how things have been done differently can spark new ideas.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the next progressive perspective?
The continuum perspective.
Continuum, okay.
This one encourages us to explore alternative approaches to classroom design and instruction.
So brainstorming different teaching styles.
Different assessment methods, ways to personalize the learning experience.
Okay, so it's about thinking outside the box and considering all possibilities.
Exactly.
All right, what's next?
Next up, we have the temporal perspective.
Temporal, okay.
This one reminds us to consider the past, present, and future of the classroom.
So how education has evolved over time.
The challenges facing classrooms today and what the classroom of the future might look like.
Wow, so we're taking a long view of education.
Exactly. Understanding how the classroom fits into the larger trajectory.
I like it. It's about seeing the classroom in context.
Precisely.
Okay, we're on the last perspective now, right?
Right. The quantitative perspective.
Quantitative, so numbers.
Yes, this one brings in the data.
So test scores, attendance records, student feedback.
All that information that can help us measure effectiveness.
Okay, so using data to track progress.
Identify areas for improvement and make more informed decisions.
It's about using data to drive better outcomes.
Exactly.
Wow. It's amazing to see how much richer our understanding of the classroom becomes when we apply all 9 of these perspectives.
Right. It's not just a room with desks and a chalkboard.
It's a complex system with all sorts of interconnected elements.
And that's the power of holistic thinking perspectives.
They can be applied to any system, right?
Absolutely, whether it's a business, a community, or even your own personal life.
It's like having a Swiss Army knife for your brain.
I like that analogy.
Now, before we wrap up, I
Yeah.
want to touch on one more concept.
Okay.
Technological uncertainty.
Yes, that's a big one these days.
especially in fields where technology is constantly changing.
Engineering, project management.
Right. And Dr. Kasser introduces this framework for assessing technological uncertainty.
The TDO.
The TADU, right? The Technology Availability Window of Opportunity.
It's basically a sliding scale.
From technologies that are readily available
to those that are still experimental.
Okay, so if a project uses existing technologies, the TDU rating would be higher.
Indicating lower risk.
Because it's more predictable?
Exactly.
But if a project uses cutting-edge technologies, the TDU rating would be lower.
Higher risk, more uncertainty.
Makes sense.
It's like the difference between following a recipe and inventing a new dish.
One is way more predictable than the other.
Exactly, and the TDU framework helps us navigate those unknowns.
Okay, so it's a tool for making more informed decisions when we're dealing with new technologies.
Precisely.
This deep dive has been incredible.
I'm glad you found it valuable.
I feel like I've learned so much.
That's what it's all about.
And to our listener,
Yes.
we hope this deep dive has been helpful for you too.
Remember, problem solving is a skill that takes practice.
So keep those minds sharp.
And those perspectives open.
Until next time.
Happy problem solving.
I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. If you're really interested in the subject of becoming an outstanding problem solver, why don't you join my class? Information is on the website, therightrequirement.com. Look at educational opportunities. If you'd just like to comment on the podcast, then why don't you join the LinkedIn group, Tackling Complex Problems? Or if you'd like to talk to me personally, check in on Thursday evenings on Zoom and look at my website for the URL and the timing. I look forward to hearing from you about the podcasts.